The state of your corpse is a final judgment on your life. Some end up in a coffin on a quiet evening as a boat docks with strange barrels on board. Others end up in an urn. A man flicks his lighter, ignites a cigarette, and asks, "What's the total?" His subordinates report, 33 urns. "Get it done before dawn," he orders. "Yes, sir," they shout in unison. Inside those barrels, however, is something far more sinister. Who gets to judge my life? They begin to pour cement inside. After taking a drag, the man simply flicks the ash down. The cigarette butt falls slowly. What kind of life have I lived? Beneath the cement-filled barrel lies a dismembered corpse. So they've already infiltrated this place. An image appears on a screen, a girl with stark white hair and mysterious red eyes. "Snow White. This is our target," the commander says. A young man raises his hand to speak. It is Kim Soo-hyuk. He asks, "Why Snow White? She isn't Caucasian. Isn't she just an ordinary Asian woman? And she looks too weak to be a target?" The commander replies, "Captain Kim Soo-hyuk, don't judge others based on their ethnicity or gender. She is in fact a very dangerous woman. Anna Nanayama, also known as Snow White, is the leader of the Nanayama Gumi Yakuza clan. The reason she's called Snow White..." Anna smiles at a girl below her. "Taste it," she orders. The girl bows her head and takes a deep sniff. "Is because she's the main supplier of pure cocaine. This is why she earned the nickname Snow White. The target is planning to host a drug party at a hotel with lax security. After a meeting with domestic and international organizations to prevent the spread of illegal drugs, we must use this opportunity to eliminate her. The mission will be covered up as internal gang conflict, so no firearms are allowed." Another person in the meeting speaks up. "A difficult mission, wouldn't you say?" "That's why we're giving you our best agent," the commander says, looking at Soo-hyuk with a grim face. "I'm only trusting you with this," Captain Soo-hyuk replies. "Leave it to me." A short while later, he arrives at the designated hotel. The elevator doors open, and he steps out, dressed impeccably in a suit. The gangsters gathered in front eye him judgmentally. Beneath Soo-hyuk's gaze, there is not a hint of fear. They immediately become agitated. "Who the hell are you? You're not supposed to be here," one shouts. Soo-hyuk calmly speaks into his communicator. "Alpha, move in." Instantly, he draws a dagger from inside his jacket. They also begin to draw their weapons. He takes a slow step forward, then lunges at them with incredible speed. They react, raising their knives and charging at him in unison. One gangster thrusts his knife downward, but Soo-hyuk deftly parries it with his own blade. With his other hand, he grabs the man's bicep. The two blades scrape against each other with a shrill screech. Soo-hyuk easily pushes the man's arm aside, exposing a clear weakness. With a single slash, he slices the man's throat. The man collapses, clutching his neck. Suddenly, another figure appears behind them, rushing forward. He swiftly stabs another gangster, finishing him with a knife to the nape of the neck. Blood splatters across Soo-hyuk's face. He remembered what his commander had said. They would have to neutralize about 10 unskilled fighters and more than 20 skilled ones. "How many agents do you need?" the commander had asked. Soo-hyuk had simply replied, 3 agents, including myself." The commander had pondered, "Isn't that too many?" "There are 3 exits, so we have no other choice," Soo-hyuk explained. "Besides, this is an elimination mission. It doesn't matter how many there are. No one can defeat my brothers." An agent's voice comes through his earpiece. "Sir, isn't this mission a bit too easy? We are Black Ops agents of the National Intelligence Service. Elite warriors forged in hell." Soo-hyuk's commanding voice cuts through. "Focus on the mission." "Yes, sir," they reply. "All units, focus and approach the main target," he repeats. Soo-hyuk and his team stand before the main door to the suite. "They're all high," he says. "There's only one exit now. Block all escape routes and kill them all." He then grabs the doorknob, yells, "Open it!" and bursts in. Inside, Anna is licking the lips of the young girl. When the door flies open, the agent's expressions remain unchanged, until Soo-hyuk notices something. His 2 agents seem uneasy. "But, boss, it looks like they're all dead," one of them stammers. On the floor are foul-smelling, desiccated corpses. "Find the target," Soo-hyuk orders. "First, close the exit and lock the door." But suddenly the door slams shut on its own. They are plunged into darkness, hearing only the worried questions from the 3 of them. "What was that? Who's at the door?" Suddenly, a light switches on. The bright glare blinds Soo-hyuk and his team. A woman turned it on. "The door is closed and locked," she says. Soo-hyuk's eyes widen in utter shock as he looks at her. It's Anna, the primary target of this investigation. She opens her mouth, revealing a pair of unnaturally sharp fangs. Her eyes, wide and crimson red, glare at them. "She's a vampire. Now what?" Soo-hyuk's brow furrows, his face tense as he thinks to himself. Even now, Anna is holding the head of the girl she'd forced to snort cocaine, now completely lifeless. She smiles.
Should I just kill you all? A cowardly thought flashes through Soo-hyuk's mind. What if I run away with my men? Sweat drips down his face as he continues to think. We, who thought ourselves the strongest, are now facing death.
Anna suddenly calls out to one of the agents. Hey, you! He turns his head. She suddenly throws the bloody, severed head at him. Here, catch! The agent instinctively catches it with both hands. Before he can even realize what he's holding, the lifeless head is suddenly pierced through the forehead. Simultaneously, a fang shoots through his own neck. He collapses in an instant, killed by a fatal shot from Anna's flicked finger. They look toward their fallen comrade and scream his name. Ji-hyuk! The remaining agent is instantly enraged. He grips his weapon tightly and rushes forward, screaming, You bitch! Soo-hyuk tries to stop him. Stop! This opponent is not ordinary! But his words are barely out of his mouth. The agent, whose rage has overshadowed his reason, is immediately hit by a second fang that shatters his skull. Soo-hyuk stares at his dead teammate in despair, blood splattering across his face. Now, it's just him and Anna. She begins to chuckle softly, then says with excitement, No matter how many insects there are, they're still just insects. What do you think you can do? Furious, Soo-hyuk grips his weapon and glares at her menacingly. You... But strangely, she emits a bizarre psychic frequency, forcing him to struggle to stay conscious. Stay sharp. She's beyond my control. But Soo-hyuk grits his teeth. We can't go back like this. Suddenly, she flicks something else at him. Soo-hyuk's eyes widen. He can't react in time. The fang moves with the speed of a bullet, leaving him stunned, watching it approach. A fang. Luckily, Soo-hyuk snaps back to his senses. He instantly dodges to the side. The fang grazes his cheek, leaving a deep gash. Anna quickly pulls out more fangs, controlling them with her aura, and laughs wildly. She continuously shoots them at him, but Soo-hyuk nimbly weaves and dodges, getting closer and closer. Finally, he reaches her. Soo-hyuk gets a running start and leaps. He lunges at Anna and throws a punch as he yells, Die! Suddenly, Anna catches his face in her palm. She laughs maniacally, effortlessly throwing his entire body behind her. Then threw Soo-hyuk forcefully, sending him crashing into the wall. He crumpled, coughing in agony. He lay on the floor, drained of strength, amidst the scattered shards of glass he had broken. Soo-hyuk couldn't believe his eyes. Impossible! What is this strength? He looked up in astonishment at the scene about to unfold. Suddenly, Anna leaped into the air, a knife in her hand, poised to descend on him. She landed with both feet directly on Soo-hyuk's knees, causing a sky-piercing scream to tear from his throat. Anna laughed with excitement, raising the knife. I really like you, she said. You're making this so much more thrilling. She plunged the knife through his palm, and Soo-hyuk let out a strained groan. She flashed a savage smile as Soo-hyuk trembled beneath her. Now, this is even more fun. His hand began to bleed, swelling and turning a dark purple. Fun? Soo-hyuk thought, gritting his teeth in absolute agony. He asked again. Fun? This surprised her. Behind her were the corpses of the bar patrons she had slaughtered. Soo-hyuk looked at them, then at his own fallen teammates who were no longer breathing. He looked up, defiant. You take people's lives just for entertainment, Soo-hyuk screamed in her face. And you call this fun? This stunned Anna. In that moment of hesitation, Soo-hyuk sank his teeth deep into her neck, spraying blood everywhere. He tore a chunk of her flesh away with his teeth while Anna was still trying to process what was happening. Soo-hyuk then grabbed a nearby shard of broken glass and drove it directly into the open wound on her neck. Soo-hyuk let go. Anna stared blankly at the glass shard, then collapsed, falling right beside him. Soo-hyuk stared wide-eyed at Anna. I killed her, he thought. The room fell silent. Her body was motionless. Vengeance is mine, he thought. Soo-hyuk whispered, I'm the only one who survived. He looked at his sacrificed comrades and could only say, I'm sorry. Soo-hyuk was still reeling from everything that had happened. He lay there for a moment, thinking, I'll be with you guys soon. But things were not as they seemed. He suddenly coughed up blood. Tears of blood streamed from his eyes. What? Anna suddenly stirred. She sat up and looked at Soo-hyuk, whose eyes and nose were bleeding. Well, that was a surprise, she said with a thrill in her voice. For a human, you did a good job biting through my neck. She then pulled the large glass shard from her throat. Instantly, the wound sealed itself without a trace. Soo-hyuk stared in disbelief, screaming, What the hell are you? But suddenly, an excruciating pain shot through him, and Soo-hyuk let out another scream that tore at his throat. Anna watched him writhe in torment. She smiled. Don't try to understand it. It's useless. You're the first one I've met like this. More blood shot from Soo-hyuk's mouth as he continued to scream, writhing in agony. She narrowed her eyes. I hope you can withstand it. With that, Anna pulled the knife from the center of his palm. Soo-hyuk bit down, trying to suppress the pain. A moment later, Soo-hyuk stopped moving. His chest no longer rose and fell. He just lay with his head in a pool of his own blood. Anna looked at his pathetic corpse and judged him. Pathetic. From outside, the area's security guards burst through the door. "Boss, are you all right?" they asked worriedly. Anna looked at them, her red eyes glowing. Just like that, one of the guards was impaled through the head by a fang she had shot, right in front of his teammate. The others broke into a cold sweat, staring at the body, speechless. Anna, her expression cold, simply ordered, "Clean up these bodies." She stood up. "Let's go back to Japan." "Yes, ma'am," they replied in unison. In the light of dawn, Soo-hyuk stood blankly, his body bearing the marks of the battle and a spattering of cement. "They say the state of your corpse is a judgment on your life." The guards looked inside, surprised. "What the—" Another one, savoring a cigarette, seemed curious. "What's going on?" he asked, raising an eyebrow at the other man. Soo-hyuk had stood up from inside the cement-filled barrel on the familiar transport boat, the same one where the gangsters disposed of evidence into the sea. They began to murmur amongst themselves about the strange phenomenon. "Don't worry, he's definitely dead." "Is this rigor mortis or something? I've never seen anything like it. What kind of grudge did he have to end up like this?" Soo-hyuk's own thoughts continued to race. But what if I refuse to die? The other man pressed the smoldering butt of his cigarette against Soo-hyuk's neck and laughed to his buddies. "Hurry up and bury him so he can rest in peace, haha." A bright red burn mark appeared on his skin. "Then what will I do?" Soo-hyuk's mouth suddenly moved. The burn mark slowly healed, as if it had never been there. The man who saw this strange event froze completely. "What the—" Soo-hyuk began to move slowly, his terrifying white-pupiled eyes wide open. In his mind's eye, he saw the distinctive red eyes of a vampire, and a voice spoke to him. "I will not accept a death like this." Seeing him move, they wondered amongst themselves, "Is he still alive?" In a flash, their voices turned to panic. "Only after I get my revenge on that bitch will I be satisfied!" The voices of the Special Forces team echoed one by one. "Alpha, done. Charlie, done. All team members, approach the main target." Soo-hyuk had said, "They're all high." He looked at the main door. "There's only one exit. Block it and kill them all." But strangely, everyone was gone, leaving him standing alone in the gloomy darkness. Soo-hyuk wondered, turning his head. "What? Where did everyone go?" As soon as the thought finished, a woman's hands clamped tightly over Soo-hyuk's mouth from behind. It was Anna. She wore a grotesque smile. Her arms multiplied, and they were all tearing him apart. You succeeded too," she said, tilting his head back to look directly into his eyes. Soo-hyuk couldn't escape her grasp anymore. "Welcome. You're a daywalker now." Finally, the nightmare vanished. Soo-hyuk awoke with a start, his body covered in blood. The sun had risen. The boat was still drifting on the open sea. He slowly sat up, clutching his head. "My head," he groaned. Soo-hyuk frowned. "What am I doing here?" But before him was a bloody spectacle. The men who had been on the boat earlier had all been torn apart, their blood and gore splattered across the entire boat. Soo-hyuk sat there, stunned. "What the hell is this?" he wondered, his pupils constricting in fear. "What happened?" Suddenly a voice called from behind him. "Captain Soo-hyuk!" And it was another agent from the investigation headquarters. He was standing on a rescue boat. A little introduction. "We're from HQ. Please come with us." A short while later, Soo-hyuk was finally brought safely to shore. In the car, Soo-hyuk asked, "What happened on the ship?" They just replied, "We're investigating that now, sir. We heard the mission was completed. Aren't you tired?" Soo-hyuk looked out the car window and just said, "I'm fine." "It's a long drive," one of them said. "You should at least get some sleep." Along the way, the man spoke and then turned his head. But there was something different. At some point, he had put on a gas mask. Suddenly, a strange gas flooded the car from the roof. It was poison. Panicked, Soo-hyuk clutched his throat and yelled, "Who are these guys?" They, fully equipped with gas masks, simply continued to drive. The gas quickly overwhelmed Soo-hyuk, making him dizzy before he fell into a deep state of unconsciousness. But perhaps his condition was even more serious than that. The driver took out a phone and reported to the person on the other end. "We've secured the specimen, Director." The director laughed mysteriously and praised them. "Good work, everyone," he ordered. "Transfer it to the lab. We'll begin the dissection immediately." Ending the call, he suddenly gripped his desk, his body trembling with laughter. He burst out laughing with excitement. "I finally got it. The thing I've always dreamed of. It was Anna's mutated DNA." A short while later, the car finally pulled into a parking garage. The ecstatic director ran out to greet it. "Get all the researchers together," he urged impatiently. "Hurry up, move it. We have a lot of experiments to conduct." The researchers quickly appeared and approached the vehicle. One of them opened the trunk, but instead of his usual professional demeanor when viewing a test subject, his eyes widened in shock. Inside the trunk were the corpses of the 2 agents he had sent to transport Soo-hyuk. "What is this?" Just then, he noticed a strange sound from inside the car. Before he could process what it was, a bullet shattered his skull. A continuous volley of gunfire erupted from inside the car, shattering the window. The bullets precisely targeted the heads of the nearby researchers and guards, causing them to drop dead in front of the director. Seeing the guard right in front of him get shot, the director was even more stunned. He stared blankly at the scene of carnage before him. Everyone who had followed him had been shot dead by the person inside the car. Only the director was left standing alone, his mind racing with fear. What? How is this possible? The director stared at the car, and then his eyes widened in terror as he realized the problem. He turned and ran for his life back toward the company building, screaming, "All units, eliminate him immediately!" The person who stepped out of the car was, unsurprisingly, Soo-hyuk. Somehow, he had eliminated the 2 agents inside the car filled with poison gas. Now, Soo-hyuk held the guns he had taken from his 2 victims. He stood there, watching intently as other agents rushed toward him with knives in hand. One agent raised his knife to attack. Soo-hyuk immediately blocked the man's arm and fired a bullet into his head. As other agents ran toward him from a distance, Soo-hyuk simultaneously fired at them. An agent to his side lunged with a knife, but Soo-hyuk instinctively caught him. The man must have known his fate was sealed the moment he was caught. Soo-hyuk pressed the gun to the man's arm and pulled the trigger. The bullet shattered his elbow, spraying blood. He followed up with a fatal shot to the head. Soo-hyuk's eyes darted to the other agents who were still charging. One swung a weapon at him. Soo-hyuk easily dodged, grabbed the man's sleeve and pulled him forward, using him as a shield while he shot another agent. He then threw the man to the ground. The knife fell from his hand, giving Soo-hyuk just enough time to stab it up into the man's neck. Soo-hyuk looked up, his eyes seeming to reflect what was about to happen next. Finally, a bullet hit him in the head. Another group of men stepped forward. They reported to the director, "We've subdued him." Soo-hyuk lay stiffly on the ground in a pool of viscous blood. "Check on him," one of them ordered. They held their guns tightly and slowly approached the spot where Soo-hyuk had fallen. But suddenly, a gunshot rang out from below, aimed at their ankles. One by one, they screamed in pain. It turned out Soo-hyuk wasn't finished. He was still alive. Thanks to his healing ability, he had survived and was hiding under the car, shooting at their ankles one by one. In a flash, Soo-hyuk revealed himself. He aimed precisely at their heads and pulled the trigger. One agent, though still holding his gun, was terrified. "I'm sure I shot him in the head," he yelled. "So why isn't he dead? Why is he still moving?" His moment of hesitation was fatal. The weapon fell from his hands. Soo-hyuk grabbed his sleeve, pulled him close, and locked his forearm around the man's neck. "Please," the man managed to choke out, but all humanity had vanished from Soo-hyuk's eyes. "My comrades and I dedicated our entire lives to our country." The man continued to groan as he was strangled. "Someone, please." Flashback to moments earlier, when Soo-hyuk had finished off the 2 agents in the front seat. He had picked up their clipboard, carefully planning his next move. "And now you sacrifice us for your own purposes?" Soo-hyuk felt betrayed by the director. "I'll show you." Filled with a murderous aura, Soo-hyuk looked at the cowardly director. He tore the agent's throat out, blood spraying in front of the director. "This is for the dogs you abandoned." The horrific scene unfolded entirely before the director's eyes. He was the last one left alive from the massacre. Soo-hyuk let the cold corpse drop and continued to advance toward him. "How cruel can you be?" The first time, Soo-hyuk was killed by his mission's target, Anna. The second time, he was poisoned by the gas in the car with the agents. And the third time was when he was shot in the head during the fight. 2 deaths, maybe even 3. I don't know what's happening to my body anymore. Soo-hyuk's eyes seemed lifeless. But one thing was certain. As an agent, I must gather information and eliminate the threat. Soo-hyuk slowly approached the director, who was sweating and pleading. "Please, Captain Soo-hyuk, calm down." As the director spoke, Soo-hyuk just kept walking forward. The director kept backing away. "I can explain everything. It was just circumstances. I'll help you get a promotion." Ignoring his words, Soo-hyuk raised his gun. "So please, put it down." Before he could finish, a bullet tore through his thigh, making the director scream in agony. Despite the pain, he continued, Wait a minute, listen to me." Soo-hyuk glared at him threateningly. "Shut up and answer me. What did you do to me?" The director knelt, clutching his thigh. He gritted his teeth. "It seems there's been a misunderstanding, but you should listen to me." Suddenly, Soo-hyuk fired another shot into his other leg, leaving the director unable to stand. He screamed in pain as Soo-hyuk threatened again. "Stop stalling." The director collapsed, clutching his bleeding thigh. "Even if you die, you come back to life, and your wounds heal very quickly, don't they? Some of Anna's subordinates are the same." Hearing this, Soo-hyuk was completely stunned. The director continued. "Those people have risen to the top in Japan, even though they're new to the game. It's probably thanks to that technology." The director revealed the entire plan. "We wanted to acquire that technology too." So that's why you sent those agents? Soo-hyuk asked. But instead of gathering information, they all died, the director said. Furthermore, the plan was revised. We decided not to send ordinary agents anymore, but to send a trustworthy one. That's why you were chosen. As soon as she entered Korea, she bought that technology. From now on, even on dangerous missions, you won't have to worry about getting injured. You've worked hard, Captain Soo-hyuk. You're a hero. But without letting him continue his persuasion, Soo-hyuk bluntly fired another bullet into the director's right shoulder. The director clutched his wounded shoulder, screaming in pain. I told you everything! Why did you still shoot me? Soo-hyuk said. You talk about being a hero, but you were planning on using me as a test subject. Do you know anything about that bitch? If we had continued, we might have gotten more information. They all died because of you. My comrades could have been saved. The director, trembling, said, So what if you have special powers? Those national bastards are just human, right? You said you didn't want to lose to a human, didn't you? He looked up and continued, Isn't that your job? They died simply carrying out their mission. The director yelled, We even gave them medals for dying. So why are you still picking a fight with me? But Soo-hyuk shut him up with a hard kick to the face. Soo-hyuk put his gun away and ordered, That's enough. Shut up. The director could only clutch his face and groan. Soo-hyuk pulled a knife from his jacket. Feel the pain my agents felt, he said, advancing with the knife, his expression menacing. The night is long. And the terrified director held up his hands in a gesture to stop him. Wait, Captain Soo-hyuk! But without another word, the knife plunged downward. Suddenly, the knife was shot out of his hand. Soo-hyuk glanced up. In front of him were convoys of armed forces. Drop your weapon and surrender immediately, they ordered. The director then complained. What took you so long to get here after I called? They stepped out one by one, fully equipped with body armor and guns. They formed a long line, a formation for both defense and offense. Soo-hyuk scowled. This is dangerous, he thought. I have to hide immediately. Just then, he turned his back and ran. Someone yelled the command, Fire! The crowd of them immediately opened fire. The director quickly dove aside, clearing a path for the bullets. Soo-hyuk was hit and let out a scream. After a continuous volley of gunfire, the command, Cease fire, was finally given. Soo-hyuk was lying on the ground, a pool of blood flowing from his head, his body riddled with bullet holes. The director got up, a triumphant grin on his face. Hey, look at you acting so high and mighty. You got what you deserved. All you had to do was be happy locked up for the rest of your life and give us your blood. Why can't you regenerate and heal your wounds now, huh? Well then, just keep working hard. Whether it's you or them, as long as we suppress you with firepower, it's fine. Haha. You've worked hard, Captain Soo-hyuk. Suddenly, a strange smoke drifted through the air. A head peeked down from the roof above. Hey, the person said. The director was startled. The person asked, Isn't that Soo-hyuk? The director could only manage to say, What? She immediately introduced herself. Captain of Team 7, AAK. I'm the AAK you just mentioned. The director screamed, This is an order! Kill that bitch too! Instantly, a rain of bullets hammered the spot where she was hiding, but Ayaka had already leaped away. She landed behind the line of police. They jumped, each one startled. Behind us! Since when? But in a flash, many were dead from a single sweep of Ayaka's blade. Horrified screams erupted from them one by one. Ayaka dispatched them with just one sword, using her extraordinary speed and powerful strikes. The remaining men raised their guns and continuously aimed and fired. Form a line, one person commanded. Fire at the same time! A tube began to work, continuously channeling blood into her mouth. Ayaka was also a vampire, and she used it to maintain her energy. Ayaka gripped her two swords, moving them constantly to deflect the bullets. This made them stare wide-eyed in astonishment. A sword can deflect bullets? Ayaka quickly approached one of them. She ducked below his line of fire and slashed his throat. His head flew toward another officer, who watched it, forgetting that he had exposed his own weakness. A moment later, Ayaka's sword slashed across his body. The scope of a sniper rifle turned toward her. After a moment of aiming, the sniper pulled the trigger. The bullet flew toward Ayaka, but she noticed it with her sharp eyes. Ayaka turned and slashed the bullet. The precise cut astonished them. Not only did she block the bullet, she had even cut it in half. What kind of monster is she? Before the thought could finish, her sword slashed through the sniper, killing him instantly. Ayaka quickly targeted another person. She thrust her blade through his throat, then spun and lopped his head off. The officer's head fell to the ground in front of the director. Ayaka slowly approached where he was kneeling. In the moonlight, Ayaka's eyes glowed with a mysterious and dangerous red light. The director's eyes widened with tension. A monster. A monster. But as Ayaka swept past him, her sword smoothly sliced the director's head in two. Ayaka nudged Soo-hyuk with the tip of her shoe. Hey you, already dead down there? He slowly pushed himself up, feeling a little dizzy. Are you Soo-hyuk? Ayaka asked.
Then she said, "Miss Anna told me to bring you to her." Soo-hyuk gritted his teeth in anger. He glared with blood-red eyes and seriously shouted, "Get lost, you bitch!" "That's right," Ayaka said with a mysterious air. "It's not bring him to her, but bring him to me." Ayaka slashed her sword at Soo-hyuk, who immediately used a dagger to resist. Ayaka broke the lock by making a circular motion with her two swords, forcing Soo-hyuk to withdraw his hand. "Quite impressive," she praised him slightly, then raised her sword again. Soo-hyuk instinctively used his dagger to parry the blow, but he immediately wondered, "Have I lost too much blood?" The longer this dragged on, the worse it would be. Soo-hyuk's vision began to blur, and he could no longer see his opponent clearly. Is this the only way? He wondered. Ayaka slashed her sword, and Soo-hyuk immediately retreated. "You've held out for quite a while," she said, but then Ayaka raised her sword. "Let's end this here." She plunged her sword through his abdomen, but Soo-hyuk showed no reaction. Suddenly, he gripped her arm tightly. Soo-hyuk glared and said, "Gotcha!" This greatly surprised Ayaka. She immediately pulled her sword out. Ayaka then began to slash relentlessly. On the other side, Soo-hyuk simultaneously counterattacked, unleashing a flurry of fatal blows toward her until they both disengaged, falling in opposite directions. Ayaka's head was sent flying, while Soo-hyuk was covered in countless wounds, with one arm severed. He lay there, blood smeared across his face and clothes. Soo-hyuk remembered the time Anna had healed her wounds as if nothing had happened. "This time I'll definitely cut her head off," he had thought to himself. Soo-hyuk sighed in relief. "I won. I'm losing consciousness. Am I dying again?" His eyes gradually closed. Suddenly, through Soo-hyuk's blurry, half-closed eyes, Ayaka stood up. In her hand was her own head. Ayaka, still conscious, even praised him. "Quite impressive." This forced Soo-hyuk's eyes open. He glared at her. What he had just witnessed was real. Ayaka also had the regenerative abilities of a vampire. He watched as she took her own head and reattached it to her neck. From the endlessly bleeding cut, her tendons became visible, connecting themselves like wires. Ayaka clutched her neck and said, "Miss Anna wants this very badly." Soo-hyuk gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his brow as he thought, "Damn it, my body won't move." Ayaka approached and placed the tip of her sword on the center of his chest. "You did well," she said. "When you wake up, you will be standing before Miss Anna." Hearing this, Soo-hyuk's eyes widened. She plunged the sword into his chest, then let go. He'll probably be more docile now, Ayaka thought. Her blood supply tube detached and retracted. The blood supply was cut, yet he remained conscious. The first rays of dawn began to appear in the sky. She reached for her sword. She had to get back before it was too late. But suddenly, Soo-hyuk, lying below her, moved and groaned. This surprised Ayaka. "He can stand? It's useless to struggle." As soon as she finished the thought, Soo-hyuk lunged forward with his fist. Ayaka immediately bent down and grabbed the sword still embedded in his chest. "How foolish," she said, and instantly used the sword to slice off his remaining arm. "If this continues, all of your limbs will—" Before she could finish, Soo-hyuk's arm had suddenly grown back, and he punched her in the face. A part of Ayaka's mask broke off. She quickly spun around, stabilizing her body as she slid backward. Soo-hyuk lunged again, his other arm rapidly growing back, leaving Ayaka completely stunned. Soo-hyuk used his newly regenerated hardened nails to slash at her. Ayaka instantly dodged out of his attack range. "It's regenerating," she thought. But even though she dodged, the force of the slash still hit her arm. Her sleeve was torn away, and her flesh was ripped open. And it's regenerating at super speed like that? The moment the thought crossed her mind, Soo-hyuk lunged again with blinding speed. He sank his teeth into her arm. Looking closely, Soo-hyuk's eyes had become horrifying, and his biting force increased. Beneath Ayaka's skin, taut veins became visible as she tensed up. "No," she thought frantically. She quickly slashed at Soo-hyuk several times with her sword, but his body seemed too hard for the blade to penetrate. Soo-hyuk continued to bite down hard. A numbing, electric shock-like sensation shot through her, causing Ayaka to cry out in pain. He only bit down harder, driving his fangs in. Ayaka grew anxious, desperately trying to find a way out. "If this continues, I'll lose everything. Damn it!" Finally, she took her sword and freed herself from Soo-hyuk's bite. Ayaka landed on her feet and one hand. She had cut off her own other arm. Meanwhile, Soo-hyuk was now no different from a ravenous vampire. A shriveled arm in his mouth. He spat it out. Ayaka slowly stood up, frowning. Soo-hyuk suddenly clenched his teeth and let out a loud roar, blood spraying from his mouth. "What the hell was that?" Ayaka wondered, alarmed. Suddenly, 3 shots were fired at Soo-hyuk. This intervention put Ayaka on high alert. She glanced over and immediately spun her sword in a circle to deflect the bullets, but one got past her blade and hit her in the shoulder.
That bullet was the bane of vampires. The moment it embedded itself in Ayaka's flesh, the spot sizzled and smoked as if burning. "What is this?" Ayaka wondered. A group of people cloaked in jet-black clothing surrounded Ayaka while she was injured. From behind them, the figure of a priestess appeared. "Father in heaven," she said, "we will send these two to you. My name is Miro, of the Pope's Hunters." Ayaka's eyes widened in fear. "Those bastards!" Miro smiled. "Fire!" she commanded. Instantly, the people behind her raised their guns. They fired continuously at Soo-hyuk. Ayaka was simultaneously shot in the leg. Aiming for the legs? She wondered. Both of them immediately collapsed to their knees. "Stop! Burn him!" Miro ordered. A man carrying a black box began to open it. From inside, he took out a multi-barreled gun. The gun fired a barrage of needles into Soo-hyuk's back. From the front, hooks dug into him. Instantly, the hooks were connected to an electric current, violently electrocuting Soo-hyuk. He roared in agony. Ayaka looked toward the horizon, extremely worried. "No, the sun is rising." Instantly, Ayaka was also burned by the light. Severe burns began to form, making her growl in pain. "Does it hurt?" Miro asked. She glared at Ayaka. "Hellfire is twice as hot. You'll love it." Ayaka looked up at Miro, her expression furious. "You human? Don't look down on us!" She threw a punch, but it was blocked by Miro's foot. Miro's kick was so strong it easily shattered Ayaka's arm. She screamed in pain. "What are you talking about, you fool?" Miro said with contempt. She declared, "Today you will die by my hand, and then it will be your friend's turn." But a strange noise from the other side made her ignore Ayaka and look over. "What's going on?" It was Soo-hyuk. He had not fallen from such things. Despite being electrocuted and injected with drugs, Miro was completely surprised. "He's still standing after a beating like that?" she wondered. Then her question immediately shifted. "More than that, why isn't he burned by the sun?" Ayaka seized the opportunity while Miro was focused on Soo-hyuk. "This is my chance," she realized, and quickly dashed away with her broken arm. Miro watched Ayaka flee. She could only mutter, "That one." Miro wondered, did he use up all his remaining blood? She bent her knees, thinking, "If I chase her now..." But a roar made Miro pause. Miro's teammate looked at her with a panicked expression. "Why isn't this bastard dead yet?" On the contrary, Soo-hyuk lunged at them. He roared loudly, slashing his hand toward the man. Miro, of course, saved her comrade. She flew forward, slashing her sword down and cutting off his arm in one clean motion. "Everyone retreat!" Miro commanded. "Miro." "Yes, ma'am," they replied. Soo-hyuk's eyes shifted to Miro. She frowned. "This one looks more dangerous." Miro once again slashed her sword toward him, yelling, "Die!" But what happened next was something she hadn't anticipated. Soo-hyuk used his arm to block it. "You're pretty tough, huh?" Miro said. Suddenly, his other arm regenerated, growing back as good as new, to Miro's astonishment. He threw a punch at her. Only when the fist was close did Miro realize what was happening, but she instinctively leaned to the side, then suddenly smiled. "Thank the Lord," she said. "I'm glad I didn't finish him off sooner." Miro's eyes lit up. She was laughing with excitement. She raised her fist, but this time it was imbued with holy energy. Miro immediately punched him in the stomach. Soo-hyuk was quickly knocked out by the blow. A massive explosion erupted, a golden aura emanating from the punch. As a large amount of dust gradually settled, Miro said, "Someone like you must be famous." She rested her sword on her shoulder. "Where have you been hiding all this time that we couldn't meet until now?" The smoke cleared. In front of her was the figure of Soo-hyuk. Miro started to walk forward but stopped abruptly, surprised. Soo-hyuk was holding the corpse of her comrade, sinking his teeth into it and drinking voraciously. This was the first time she had seen anything like it. Drinking blood right in the middle of a battle. After he was done, Soo-hyuk dropped the corpse. His power had now doubled. He exhaled a cloud of vapor from his mouth. Soo-hyuk threw his head back and let out a loud roar, his body covered in blood. Seeing this horrifying scene, Miro clenched her fists and said seriously, "You must be finished here and now." Miro raised her blade. The sword quickly radiated an aura. Miro stomped on the ground, immediately getting into a fighting stance, an aura emanating from her entire body. "Come on!" Miro yelled. But before they could fight, Soo-hyuk suddenly rolled over and passed out. This made him even more unpredictable. Soo-hyuk was no longer moving, even after being powered up, causing Miro to exclaim, "What the?" A long time later, Soo-hyuk slowly opened his eyes. His pupils had returned to their normal color. A voice woke him up. "Captain Soo-hyuk! Captain Soo-hyuk!" Through the hazy, half-closed eyes of his delirium, he saw his commander standing before him. Soo-hyuk's eyes widened in surprise. That voice? It was his commander. His commander looked extremely worried. He asked, "Captain Soo-hyuk, are you conscious?" Miro watched Soo-hyuk intently. "He's awake." He looked at Miro, his expression curious. Who is she? But when he looked down at his own body, Soo-hyuk saw that he was chained tightly to a pillar, unable to move.
What is going on?
Soo-hyuk wondered.
Kim Soo-hyuk, listen carefully, Miro said. After reviewing your behavior, we have decided, her eyes showed a clear seriousness, to sentence you to death as a vampire.
Soo-hyuk was silent for a moment. When he realized what she was saying, he became frantic.
What?
Soo-hyuk raised his eyebrows.
What are you talking about? Don't joke like that. Those things aren't real.
Miro lifted his chin.
Is that so? What are you doing?
He asked. Miro put her thumb in her mouth and bit it. Blood dripped from the wound.
The vampire nature within Soo-hyuk awakened.
His pupils turned red. I'm so thirsty. His body was immediately overcome with such a craving that he began to struggle, as if trying to break free from the chains. He gritted his teeth, repeatedly calling out, "Blood! It's blood!" His eyes were fixed on every drop of blood that fell. Soo-hyuk increasingly wanted to break free. "I want to drink blood." But in an instant, he returned to his human form. Soo-hyuk seemed to snap out of it. "Do you believe me now?" Miro asked. He broke out in a cold sweat, extremely worried. "What just happened?" The commander said, "It's truly unbelievable, but it seems to be true." This surprised him even more. "I have a video of you going on a rampage on the ship, and the bodies are just as this person described." Soo-hyuk couldn't believe his ears. "Are you saying I did that?" Miro asked. "You issued an elimination mission without knowing what Anna was? Really? You guys are that reckless."
You found out Anna was a vampire? Something even the National Intelligence Service didn't know? Soo-hyuk asked.
"That's right," Miro answered succinctly. She said, "Killing vampires is the job of our Vatican team. By law, we should have killed you too. But I'll give you a special favor." Miro placed the tip of her foot on his chest. She smiled and said, "Be my hunting dog." Soo-hyuk was taken aback. "What?" she continued. "From what I've heard, we share a common enemy. So let's not waste our strength on each other. Let's kill Anna together." Miro then smiled ambitiously. In a magnificent skyscraper, 2 guards stood solemnly at a door. From inside came Anna's voice. "Some people are taking over the cartel and attracting more mafia, so why hasn't anyone caught that little bug yet?" She was holding Ayaka by the neck, but the current Ayaka was only an upper torso, both arms severed, her dismembered limbs and blood splattered across the floor. "I'm sorry," Ayaka still managed to say. "As expected," Anna said. "I shouldn't have entrusted that to you." Ayaka's eyes drooped as if she were about to cry. Suddenly, Anna ripped off Ayaka's mask, pulled her close, and kissed her. The kiss transferred a large amount of energy from her blood. Ayaka's eyes widened. Anna's blood. Instantly, her body regenerated to its former state. Ayaka knelt before her. "This is your last chance," Anna ordered. Outside, the city streets were still brightly lit. Ayaka walked, her blood supply tube still continuously circulating. She left the skyscraper, the abundant energy still surging within her. On the roof of a nearby building, a girl with short blonde hair sat watching Ayaka's retreating figure. She was also a vampire, apparently one of Anna's subordinates. Anna's voice echoed in her mind. "Bring her before me." On the bustling city streets, a black car drove along the road. Soo-hyuk sat inside, silently looking out the window. Miro and another priest sat in the front seat. All the while, Soo-hyuk kept thinking about their words. "Choose to die as a vampire at my hands, or become a hunting dog to end Anna together. Be careful, Captain Soo-hyuk. Either way, the agent you killed belonged to the director. We have no choice but to target you. Your expression is giving it all away." Suddenly, Soo-hyuk was snapped out of his thoughts by Miro's voice. She looked at his face in the rearview mirror. "Is it that hard to admit you're a vampire?" she asked with a smirk. "Why did you bring me here?" Soo-hyuk asked. She smiled and said, "If it weren't for me, all factions would be targeting you. In such cases, isn't it better to seek revenge together?" "Can you trust me?" he asked. "Of course not," Miro replied. She smiled triumphantly. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend. For now, that's enough." She looked outside, smiled brightly, and announced, "Ah, we're here." In front of them was a sacred temple. "This is the team's main base," Miro introduced. "It's called the Sanctuary." "Isn't it just a church?" he asked. "That's right," she replied. "It looks more natural this way." Soo-hyuk heard this and pondered. Suddenly their car sped up and passed the temple. This surprised Soo-hyuk. "Shouldn't we turn back?" he asked. "This isn't our destination," she said. "Besides, since the sanctuary is protected by holy relics, you can't enter." He was a little wary. "So?" Miro said. "Even if you become a member of the team, right now you're just bait for Anna. So I've placed you in a special case and decided to manage you myself."
When the car stopped, Miro began to get out. "In other words," she said with a smile, "you'll have to live with me." Soo-hyuk went from one surprise to another. They entered a hotel building and went into a cozy room. "This is a hotel for team members," Miro explained. "A place to stay without leaving a trace."
Come to think of it, we haven't officially introduced ourselves, have we? She sat down on the soft bed. Miro crossed her arms and introduced herself. "I'm a member of the Vatican team. My name is Miro." "And I'm Kim Soo-hyuk," Soo-hyuk replied. "I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Feel free to ask," she said. He raised a question. "Explain the vampire thing to me." Miro smiled. "It seems you've accepted it. As long as vampires have human blood to drink, they will never die. They possess physical abilities far superior to humans. Some vampires even have special powers. Most of them carry the blood of ancient vampires. And currently, Anna is the only one still alive." He remembered biting her neck. This vampire blood. What is it? Soo-hyuk's eyes widened in surprise. That voice. It was his commander. His commander looked extremely worried and asked, "Captain Soo-hyuk, are you conscious?" Miro watched Soo-hyuk intently. "He's awake." He looked at Miro, his expression curious. Who is she? But when he looked down at his own body, Soo-hyuk saw that he was chained tightly to a pillar, unable to move. "What is going on?" Soo-hyuk wondered. "Kim Soo-hyuk, listen carefully," Miro said. "After reviewing your behavior, we have decided—" Her eyes showed a clear seriousness. "To sentence you to death as a vampire." Soo-hyuk was silent for a moment. When he realized what she was saying, he became frantic. "What?" Soo-hyuk raised his eyebrows. "What are you talking about? Don't joke like that. Those things aren't real." Miro lifted his chin. "Is that so? What are you doing?" he asked. Miro put her thumb in her mouth and bit it. Blood dripped from the wound. The vampire nature within Soo-hyuk awakened. His pupils turned red. "I'm so thirsty." His body was immediately overcome with such a craving that he began to struggle, as if trying to break free from the chains. He gritted his teeth, repeatedly calling out, "Blood! It's blood!" His eyes were fixed on every drop of blood that fell. Soo-hyuk increasingly wanted to break free. "I want to drink blood." But in an instant he returned to his human form. Soo-hyuk seemed to snap out of it. "Do you believe me now?" Miro asked. He broke out in a cold sweat, extremely worried. "What just happened?" The commander said, "It's truly unbelievable, but it seems to be true." This surprised him even more. "I have a video of you going on a rampage on the ship, and the bodies are just as this person described." Soo-hyuk couldn't believe his ears. "Are you saying I did that?" Miro asked. "You issued an elimination mission without knowing what Anna was? Really? You guys are that reckless." "Shh. You found out Anna was a vampire? Something even the National Intelligence Service didn't know?" Soo-hyuk asked. "That's right," Miro answered succinctly. She said, "Killing vampires is the job of our Vatican team. By law, we should have killed you too. But I'll give you a special favor." Miro placed the tip of her foot on his chest. She smiled and said, "Be my hunting dog." Soo-hyuk was taken aback. "What?" She continued. "From what I've heard, we share a common enemy, so let's not waste our strength on each other. Let's kill Anna together." Miro then smiled ambitiously. At a magnificent skyscraper, 2 guards stood solemnly at a door. From inside came Anna's voice. "Some people are taking over the cartel and attracting more mafia. So why hasn't anyone caught that little bug yet?" She was holding Ayaka by the neck. But the current Ayaka was only an upper torso, both arms severed, her dismembered limbs and blood splattered across the floor. "I'm sorry," Ayaka still managed to say. "As expected," Anna said. "I shouldn't have entrusted that to you." Ayaka's eyes drooped as if she were about to cry. Suddenly, Anna ripped off Ayaka's mask, pulled her close, and kissed her. The kiss transferred a large amount of energy from her blood. Ayaka's eyes widened. Anna's blood. Instantly, her body regenerated to its former state. Ayaka knelt before her. "This is your last chance," Anna ordered. Outside, the city streets were still brightly lit. Ayaka walked, her blood supply tube still continuously circulating. She left the skyscraper, the abundant energy still surging within her. On the roof of a nearby building, a girl with short blonde hair sat watching Ayaka's retreating figure. She was also a vampire, apparently one of Anna's subordinates. Anna's voice echoed in her mind. "Bring her before me." On the bustling city streets, a black car drove along the road. Soo-hyuk sat inside, silently looking out the window. Miro and another priest sat in the front seat. All the while, Soo-hyuk kept thinking about their words. "Choose to die as a vampire at my hands, or become a hunting dog to end Anna together. Be careful, Captain Soo-hyuk. Either way, the agent you killed belonged to the director. We have no choice but to target you. Your expression is giving it all away.
Suddenly, Soo-hyuk was snapped out of his thoughts by Miro's voice. She looked at his face in the rearview mirror. "Is it that hard to admit you're a vampire?" she asked with a smirk. "Why did you bring me here?" Soo-hyuk asked. She smiled and said, "If it weren't for me, all factions would be targeting you. In such cases, isn't it better to seek revenge together?"
"Can you trust me?" he asked. "Of course not," Miro replied. She smiled triumphantly. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend. For now, that's enough." She looked outside, smiled brightly, and announced, "Ah, we're here." In front of them was a sacred temple. "This is the team's main base," Miro introduced. "It's called the Sanctuary." "Isn't it just a church?" he asked. "That's right," she replied. "It looks more natural this way." Soo-hyuk heard this and pondered. Suddenly, their car sped up and passed the temple. This surprised Soo-hyuk. "Shouldn't we turn back?" he asked. "This isn't our destination," she said. "Besides, since the sanctuary is protected by holy relics, you can't enter." He was a little wary. "So?" Miro said. "Even if you become a member of the team, right now you're just bait for Anna. So I've placed you in a special case and decided to manage you myself." When the car stopped, Miro began to get out. "In other words," she said with a smile, "you'll have to live with me." Soo-hyuk went from one surprise to another. They entered a hotel building and went into a cozy room. "This is a hotel for team members," Miro explained. "A place to stay without leaving a trace." "Come to think of it, we haven't officially introduced ourselves, have we?" She sat down on the soft bed. Miro crossed her arms and introduced herself. "I'm a member of the Vatican team. My name is Miro." "And I'm Kim Soo-hyuk," Soo-hyuk replied. "I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Feel free to ask," she said. He raised a question. "Explain the vampire thing to me." Miro smiled. "It seems you've accepted it. As long as vampires have human blood to drink, they will never die. They possess physical abilities far superior to humans. Some vampires even have special powers. Most of them carry the blood of ancient vampires. And currently, Anna is the only one still alive." He remembered biting her neck. "This vampire blood, what is it?" Soo-hyuk asked another question. "How do you kill them?" Miro didn't hesitate to answer. "First of all, vampires are burned to death when exposed to sunlight, except for you. Perhaps that's why you became Anna's target. However, if we turn this into an advantage, we can create an opportunity to attack Anna. To do that, you have to become stronger, and I will help you. So, do you understand why I brought you here now?" "Yeah, I get it," Soo-hyuk replied. Then he said, "Because you're afraid that since I'm not hindered by the sun, I have the potential to become the most terrifying vampire. Letting me run free is extremely dangerous, but killing me means losing a potential asset. So you use a common enemy as a premise to control me, and to eliminate me if I become too dangerous. Either way, you lose nothing." After hearing this, Miro smiled and said, "So you're not just an agent in name only. Anyway, you're a vampire. This is just part of a team member's duty." Miro gripped the hilt of her sword. "But the fact that we want to kill Anna and make you stronger is true. If you have any complaints, just ask any time." "I've died several times already," Soo-hyuk corrected. "As long as I can kill Anna, I don't care about anything else. Besides, I don't intend to surrender easily." Miro looked at him, pondering to herself. He's speaking his true intentions without hiding anything. Not only that, but he's also willingly joining our side. Does he mean his only purpose is revenge? I like this boldness. Miro grinned. "Training you will be fun." She tilted her head to the side, exposing her neck, and said, "Introduction time is over. It's time to eat. Bite my neck." Soo-hyuk was confused. "Huh? Why would I suddenly bite her neck? What does she mean?" "Like it or not, you're still a vampire," she said. "Normally, a lack of blood would hinder your actions, but you seem to have a special way of crazily seeking out blood, and you don't want to kill innocent people." Hearing those words, Soo-hyuk seemed somewhat uneasy. He slowly stood up, gathered some courage, and approached her. "I'm about to get a cramp," Miro urged. "Hurry up and drink." Soo-hyuk swallowed hard, placed his hands on Miro's shoulders, and lowered his face to bite her neck. Instantly, a stream of blood shot out from her neck. The vampire instinct awakened again. Voices echoed in his head. "The blood is flowing." "Keep drinking," Soo-hyuk thought. The voice grew louder. "More." Soo-hyuk's fangs sank deeper, his eyes glowing red with desire. "I'll let you drink it all." Suddenly, Anna's chilling smile flashed in his mind, along with her voice. "You truly are an interesting person." Soo-hyuk immediately snapped out of his bloodlust. He pushed Miro away. She fell onto the bed, panting heavily, a bite mark already on her neck. Soo-hyuk broke out in a cold sweat, blood still dripping from his mouth. "Is this bloodlust a vampire's instinct?" he wondered. Miro was silent. The bite on her neck began to heal magically. She grabbed the blanket. You're going to be very busy starting tomorrow, so it's better to sleep early. Miro covered herself with the blanket, lay down on the bed, and turned to the side. If you try anything funny, I'll kill you, she warned. Soo-hyuk still seemed to have unanswered questions. He looked at the blood stain on her neck and wondered again, will I have to drink blood like this every day? At that thought, his hands began to tremble. He finally clenched his fists tightly with the thought, it's all for revenge. Even if my body turns into a vampire, my heart remains the same. Rest in peace, my brothers. Soo-hyuk remembered the bloody scene again. I will definitely drag her down to hell. Just imagining Anna's face was enough to make him grind his teeth in anger. After a flood of thoughts, Soo-hyuk finally changed into sleepwear and sat on the bed. He pulled up the blanket, laid his head on the pillow, and closed his eyes. While Soo-hyuk was sinking into a deep sleep, Miro was still awake, her face flushed for some time with strange thoughts. But why? Miro's heart began to race. She seemed extremely flustered, her breathing unstable. He's lying next to me? She wondered frantically. Didn't he see the other room in front of him? Didn't I say there was a bed there? Why did he just lie down next to me? The more Miro thought, the redder her face became. A woman like me, sharing a bed with a man. Miro gritted her teeth, criticizing. Kim Soo-hyuk, why didn't you see it? She slowly turned her head to look at the sly man. What kind of lewd thoughts is he having, huh? Suddenly, Miro couldn't tear her eyes away from Soo-hyuk's handsome face. The more she looked, the redder she blushed. Miro finally turned away, closed her eyes tightly, took a deep breath in and out to calm herself. Calm down. Be calm. She clasped her hands in front of her chest and began to pray. Father in heaven, your light will... Suddenly, Soo-hyuk muttered something in his sleep. He turned over and, in his sleep, unconsciously placed a hand on Miro's hip. Her face flushed red again. Is he testing me? She wondered. His hand began to move up her torso, making Miro blush even more. She then let out a loud scream in terror. The next day, in a parking garage, in a room with a sign that read, Staff Only, Miro, looking extremely tired with visible bags under her eyes, stood in front of Soo-hyuk. I will teach you the fastest way to kill a vampire, she said. As you already know, vampires cannot be killed with ordinary weapons. On his side, Soo-hyuk was also very serious, but his face still bore the after effects of the previous night. There are only two ways to kill them, Miro said. The first is to expose them to sunlight. The second is to use silver. They feel a burning pain when they touch silver. By beheading them or stabbing them in the heart with a silver weapon, you can kill a vampire by inflicting that fatal wound. Hearing this, Soo-hyuk thought to himself, so that's what I did back then, but she didn't die.
Other than those methods, they cannot be killed, Miro added. Do you have any questions before we begin training? You are a brave woman, Soo-hyuk said immediately. But I'm sorry about last night. Hearing these words, Miro was instantly startled. In my dream, Soo-hyuk began, but before he could finish, Miro swung a fist at him. The powerful blow went straight for his face. Soo-hyuk quickly raised both hands to block the punch. Why did you suddenly do that? He asked. Miro gritted her teeth, looking angry. Don't talk about unnecessary things, she said. You have the basic knowledge, so let's start right away. What you need now is experience fighting monsters, not humans. Understand? From now on, you will become a member of the Reaper Squad and become stronger as a vampire. If you understand, then let's fight. Miro immediately rushed forward, launching the first attack. Soo-hyuk immediately raised his forearm to block it. No human is stronger than us.
I didn't believe that was true, but... Soo-hyuk's eyes lit up as if something had just hit him. The present is the present. Just as he saw it coming, Miro's fist slammed into his face. I was just a frog in a well. What I know is so insignificant. Soo-hyuk thought to himself, no matter how painful the road ahead is, I have to endure it. I survived hell. Blood sprayed from Soo-hyuk's mouth from the punch. He looked at the bloodstain on the floor, then stomped on it. Soo-hyuk raised his fist and ran toward Miro. He yelled, channeling all his strength into the punch, because I am a Black Ops agent, an enforcer of justice. A short while later, Soo-hyuk was panting heavily as the training session ended. Miro smiled and said, after a few months of grueling training here, you've gotten much better. The 2 fang marks were still on her neck. Miro looked at him and said, you're starting to look the part, aren't you? But you still have a lot more training to do. Suddenly, a priest opened the door from outside. Excuse me? What's going on all of a sudden? Miro asked. I'm sorry to disturb you, ma'am, the person replied, then announced, you should go to the sanctuary right away. Hearing this, she wondered to herself, the sanctuary? Then she agreed. All right, then get ready quickly. Miro left, not forgetting to instruct. I'll be back soon. You continue training. I know, Soo-hyuk replied. Miro went outside, putting on her priest's robes. So,
Why do they need me at the sanctuary? Tell me. The person following behind her said, Something happened there, but I don't know the details. Miro was silent, pondering. So, it's roughly as I expected. I like this existence. They must have gone there. A short while later, upon reaching the garage, the car's headlights flashed. It left the parking lot and rolled down the road toward the appointment. In a hidden corner somewhere, the figure of a short-haired girl appeared. She seemed to be tracking something, using her nose to sniff the air. What she identified was the scent of blood.
Found you, she said. Kim Soo-hyuk. Her eyes glowed red as she read his name, her expression extremely mysterious. On the other side, Soo-hyuk seemed to sense something as well. As Miro walked, she asked, So, why did they call me to the sanctuary? The man following her repeatedly answered, No one has told me about this. I don't have access to the detailed information. Hearing this, she thought, I have a general idea. Among the Vatican teams, there's only one entity capable of summoning me like this. She entered a room and, upon entering, said, Hello, I'm the manager here. What brings you to the sanctuary? It turned out she was talking to a man sitting in a chair with his back to her. In her mind, she identified the person, a special envoy directly from the Vatican. The other person spoke up. A pleasure to meet you. Thank you for your hard work.
We are always grateful. Let's skip the formalities and get straight to the point. You've brought in a vampire, haven't you? As he said this, the other person turned his head to look at her with a rather cold gaze. Miro heard this and remained silent, not responding. At a large building, in the grand lobby, there were many people in luxurious attire. Some were strolling around, some were sitting and talking. In the middle of the grand lobby, of course, was a reception desk. At this moment, a man walked up to it. The receptionist immediately greeted him cheerfully. Welcome, the man spoke up. Please check in. Yes, sir, the receptionist asked. May I see your ID? How many people are in your party? The man, while speaking, reached into his jacket pocket to get something. We have a rather large group, about 200 people. What the man took out turned out to be a sharp stiletto. He stared straight at the receptionist with a cold, murderous gaze, threatening him. The receptionist, in disbelief, let out a yes, and then the stiletto was immediately plunged straight into the middle of his forehead. The female receptionist next to him looked over at the male receptionist in astonishment. At first, she was only slightly surprised, but when she looked closely, her face turned pale with fear. The male receptionist was now on the floor, his body twitching with the stiletto embedded in his forehead, and then the female receptionist could no longer remain calm and screamed loudly. People nearby who saw everything fled in terror. A few security guards standing far away quickly walked over, asking, What's going on? One person immediately drew a sword and said seriously, I'll handle it there. The two of you handle the civilian evacuation and report to the control room. Understood, the other replied. Suddenly, someone spoke up from behind them. Good luck doing this alone. The man holding the sword immediately turned his head and snorted. Outside the glass doors, a series of bright white lights suddenly shone straight inside. The man was astonished, his eyes wide and jaw agape as he stared straight ahead. Several cars crashed through the glass doors and drove straight into the lobby. Behind those cars was a mob of gangsters with fierce faces and a variety of weapons in their hands. They immediately rushed toward the security guards. That man and the other two immediately drew their weapons and took a defensive stance, replying, You bastards! How dare you come here? The man immediately rushed toward the gangsters, swinging his knife and yelling, Take this! One of them received a cut on the chest, but then the cut healed itself as if nothing had ever happened. Seeing this, the man's face turned to confusion, not believing his eyes as he snorted. The gangster suddenly gritted his teeth, drool spilling from between his teeth non-stop. He gripped the knife in his hand tightly and leaped toward the man with a cold, murderous gaze. And just like that, the man breathed his last in a pool of his own red blood. Suddenly, someone came and stood next to the body. Hiding in a place like this, joining forces with the annoying Vatican scum. It's so troublesome. Soo-hyuk must be somewhere around here. If you're the one who managed that thing, there won't be any problem. It wasn't just that one man who was showing signs of drooling, but the entire group. The one who spoke was none other than Ayaka. She ordered the mob, Bring him to me. The group, upon receiving the order, immediately rushed inside to capture the person she requested. As for Ayaka, she walked over to someone sitting nearby, glanced down at them, and said, You've been working hard searching too. Destroy the control room and regroup with us. It turned out that person was the captain of Team 6, Coco. She asked, After this is over, we'll go eat until we're stuffed, right? Yes, Ayaka replied. Hearing that, she zipped up her jacket and answered, Understood. See you later. With that, she used all 4 limbs to crawl quickly away, her face clearly showing her excitement. Ayaka stood there watching her run off and sighed softly. Then she also started searching, entering an elevator and going up to the 18th floor. As she entered the elevator, she thought non-stop, Miro's face appearing in her mind. She has also left her post. The ones left are all just small fry. As a precaution, I brought some subordinates who have used that thing. There's no way we can fail. Just then, the elevator arrived. The doors opened, but suddenly her pupils dilated in utter shock. What made her so surprised were the corpses strewn everywhere right in front of the elevator door, blood all over the floor. She looked at the group in astonishment and said to herself, "These guys have been taken down? There's a high-ranking bishop here. If not, then—" Suddenly, from behind her, someone spoke. "It's been a while, hasn't it?" Terrified, she quickly turned to look behind her. Her eyes held a fleeting look of shock and fear. The person who had just spoken stepped out from behind a wall and asked, "Were you looking for me?" Back at the safe house, Miro entered. The man said, "You've brought in a vampire, haven't you? A vampire in the Vatican team? I don't doubt your judgment. I'll hear the details at the next council meeting. But as I thought, you've seen it, haven't you?" As soon as the other person finished speaking, she immediately replied, "Yes." In her mind, she recalled the training from before, thinking, after close surveillance for the past 3 months, there are no factors that could become a threat, and he has diligently gone through the Vatican's training. After a moment of recollection, she continued, "Whether he will lead us to ruin or salvation, I cannot know." She paused here, thinking to herself, "But I have seen it. Back with Ayaka, the man's 2 sharp fangs were fully revealed. It's a relief. I've been looking all over for you." In the man's hand was a knife covered in blood. Even his hands were covered in blood, with drops of it still wet, dripping onto the floor. And what Miro had seen was a vampire with crimson eyes standing under a brilliant light, and that man was none other than Soo-hyuk. With blood-red eyes, he stared straight at Ayaka and said, "Let's settle this today." When Ayaka clearly saw that the person was Soo-hyuk, she immediately screamed in her mind, "Impossible!" At the same time, she attacked instantly, but his knife still grazed her, making her cry out. Soo-hyuk didn't stop. He immediately got into a stance to stab her. While fighting him off, she wondered in astonishment, "What on earth have you been doing all this time?" Suddenly, a blood tube was severed. Ayaka's entire body spurted blood. Her face was covered in a cold sweat, and she let out a groan. In disbelief, she wondered, how can he be this strong? Soo-hyuk didn't stop, relentlessly attacking her. "I'm going to give back everything you ever said to me," he said. "Do you know how long I've waited for this day?" Suddenly, he grabbed her by the collar. She glanced at his arm in astonishment. Instantly, he used his leg to sweep hers out from under her, causing her to lose her balance and fall backward. He followed through, grabbing her throat tightly and pushing her down to the floor. Choking and in pain, she let out a loud cough. With his other hand, he raised his knife high. "Right here," he said in an icy voice. Her eyes widened, staring at the knife about to plunge into her. It seemed as though the knife would sink deep into her flesh, but no, it stopped right before her eyes, just a few centimeters from being embedded in her brain. Her eyes were filled with astonishment as the knife suddenly stopped. His entire body suddenly began to tremble, as if something was controlling it. He wondered in astonishment, "What is this? What's wrong with my body? Damn it, my body won't move? Why at a time like this?" Suddenly, a person with long hair and 2 sharp fangs appeared, asking, "You've arrived?" The other person seemed to be leading a large snake with tough, jet-black skin, exuding a horrifying, poisonous smoke. It seemed there wasn't just one, but many of them. One of them even had the corpse of a man in its mouth. That person turned out to be Nanami, the captain of Team 5, Katerina. She asked, "Are you Soo-hyuk?" Soo-hyuk, his body trembling, turned his head to look at her, thinking to himself, could it be that her ability is... As if he knew something, he cursed twice in his mind. Damn it! Ayaka immediately seized the opportunity to escape his grip and rushed toward her. "Katerina, quick, restrain him," she said. She smirked and said, "Damn it, just in time. It's about to arrive." A snake suddenly appeared next to him. It immediately opened its mouth wide, with 2 long fangs, and lunged toward him. But no, it lunged and bit Ayaka's neck instead. She stared in astonishment, not believing what had just happened. The snake quickly coiled its body tightly around her. It squeezed so tightly that she let out a cry of pain. He was equally astonished, looking over and wondering to himself, didn't she come here to help? Ayaka struggled to ask, "Katerina, why?" She didn't answer the question, but laughed instead. "I want it so badly." In her mind, she suddenly remembered a previous image, hands covered in blood, a man's mangled corpse on the bed, and bloody handprints on the wall from trying to escape her torture. "Don't ruin my toys," she thought. "No matter how handsome they are, they all end up dying ugly." In a glass cabinet, there were many heads of men she had displayed. At that moment, she reached her hand toward him and said, "That's why I've always wanted a male vampire. Soo-hyuk, come here now." He was controlled by her magic. His entire body trembled as he resisted. "My body is moving according to her will," he thought. "Is this a control ability?" The knife in his hand suddenly fell to the ground. She controlled him, making him walk toward her and place a hand on her breast. "You are my slave, so you must obey my commands,"
she said. "It will always be like this."
As she spoke, she brought her face close to his and, perversely, licked her lips with her long tongue.
Seeing this, Ayaka immediately cried out, "You bastard! Lady Anna would never allow something like this to happen." "I'm just following orders," she immediately retorted. Hearing that, Ayaka was slightly surprised, her eyes wide as she looked at Katerina. She repeated Anna's words. "Protect Soo-hyuk from troublesome people. Anyone who gets in the way is useless. If you get in my way, I will destroy both you and your teammates." She raised her hand, her cold, snake-like eyes staring at her. A small hole appeared on Ayaka's neck, with horrifying blue veins running out of it. Not believing what she had just said, Ayaka asked again, "What?" She immediately remembered the past and thought, "Lies." Anna's image appeared. Lady Anna couldn't have done this. As she said this to herself, she remembered Anna hugging and kissing her.
Her eyes gradually filled with disappointment and slowly closed. The blue veins had already reached her eyes.
And then, unable to bear it any longer, she passed out. Soo-hyuk was also coiled by Katerina's controlling snakes. He looked at Ayaka and wondered, "Passed out?" Katerina walked over and patted Ayaka's face. "Something so simple took months. I've let a useless thing like you exist for too long. You've worked hard. Now farewell." As she spoke, the snake opened its mouth wide, about to devour her. Then Coco came rushing in from somewhere, yelling, "Ayaka!" Slightly surprised, Katerina turned her head to look. Coco was still moving on all fours, stopping and standing firm on all fours as well. Katerina looked straight at her. Coco, who had just appeared, lifted her face and said loudly, "I'm here!" But when she saw that Ayaka wasn't moving and was tied up with her eyes closed, she let out a surprised, "Huh?" and then loudly called her name. "Ayaka!" Coco rushed over and used both hands to pull at the snake, whining, "What's wrong, Ayaka?" Katerina stood beside them and said, "Ah, I'm the one who did that." Soo-hyuk looked at Coco, surprised, and wondered, "Is she human?" Coco immediately burst into tears, crying a river. He frowned, looking at them, and thought, "Another enemy. Just this one woman is already too much." Katerina spoke again. "Don't worry, I guarantee it, Soo-hyuk." A snake slithered next to Coco. "Go back to Lady Anna now." Then it immediately opened its mouth wide, about to bite Ayaka again. But suddenly Coco said, "That bastard." Confused, Katerina opened her eyes and looked at Coco. "Hmm? It was that bastard who did this to Ayaka, right?" Coco continued. "That's right," Katerina replied immediately. Coco lowered her eyes and continued, "But why does Ayaka smell like your blood?" At this question, Coco shot a cold glare at Katerina, and Katerina did the same. She stood there, looking down at Coco from above with the venomous eyes of a snake. In Ayaka's dark past, there were corpses of children surrounded by flies. She trembled in fear, whimpering, "I'm scared. I want to go home, Mommy." As she spoke, she hugged her legs, curled up in a corner, buried her face in her hands, and cried non-stop. Suddenly, someone's voice caught her attention. "Hey kid, I'm Coco." It turned out to be a young Coco, so the two of them had met when they were young. Coco held out her hand to Ayaka and asked cheerfully, "What's your name?" It turned out to be a dream, a memory of Ayaka's. She woke up with a start, her eyes wide open, and cried out, "Coco!" Soo-hyuk, beside her, said, "You're awake?" Surprised, she turned her head to look at him, wondering, "Kim Soo-hyuk?" He turned his head to look at her and analyzed. As expected, she can still move. Detoxifying and moving is different from super regeneration.
Trembling, she propped her body up and asked him, "How is Coco?" He didn't look at her anymore, but looked forward and answered, "The situation isn't good." Hearing that, she asked in fear, "What do you mean?" As for Coco, she was still fighting Katerina's snakes. As soon as she killed one, another would lunge at her. Katerina still stood there, calmly watching Coco fight her snakes without lifting a finger. A snake suddenly opened its eyes wide for some unknown reason. It turned out to be because Coco had somehow managed to block the snake's jaws with her two hands. Coco tensed up and let out a loud roar, at the same time staring at Katerina with murderous eyes. Coco let out another loud roar and, with all her strength, tore the snake's mouth apart. Back with Soo-hyuk, he said, "She's holding her own well, but this fight is not evenly matched. Because of the snakes and toxins, she can't touch her opponent's body. Her movements are also slowing down due to consuming too much energy." Hearing that, Ayaka tried to sit up. "I'm going to die sooner or later anyway. I have to save Coco." "Coco?" he asked immediately. "With that body, you'll just be a burden." Hearing that, she cursed him. "You bastard!" He turned back to look at her and asked, "Give me more information about that snake." Confused, she said, "Huh?" He explained, "Your friend and I,
If there are 3 of us, the chances of winning will be higher. Slightly surprised, she asked again, "Fight together? Even though you were just trying to kill me?" "It's the best way right now," he replied. She immediately asked again, "Are you stupid? Why should I trust you?" He was silent for a moment, then sighed. Ayaka, surprised, frowned and looked forward. It turned out he had taken out his knife again. With a cold gaze, he stared at her, holding the knife with the tip pointed down at her. "Then there's no other way," he said, and then he plunged the knife down at her face. Back with Coco and Katerina, Katerina frowned slightly, thinking, "He's stronger than I thought. Because of that, I've wasted too much blood." She stood there calmly, thinking. But Coco was not so easy. She kept killing snake after snake. As for Katerina, she was still thinking, "This fool is also special. Why hasn't she been poisoned yet?" The poisonous smoke that Katerina emitted filled the entire room. She watched Coco rushing toward her and thought, "This woman can't detoxify herself. What an idiot, not knowing her own limits." And just as she finished that thought, she took a full punch from Coco. The punch was so painful that her eyes rolled back. She let out a grunt, and her entire body crashed into the glass window. The glass shattered, and she fell out of the building. Coco sat there, looking at the hole in front of her, making sure Katerina had really fallen from the building. Outside the building, on the floor where they were, a cloud of poisonous smoke billowed out from inside. Coco, her face red and covered in sweat, said tiredly, "That was scary." Coco turned back and forth, looking for Ayaka, constantly calling, "Ayaka, are you okay? Where are you? There you are." After a moment, she saw Ayaka lying on the other side with Soo Hyuk sitting next to her. But suddenly, her vision became blurry, and even her voice trembled. "Ayaka." She just lay flat on the ground, her whole body trembling non-stop. Confused, she let out a, "Huh?" She lifted her head and looked down at her ankle, only to see that a small snake was biting it. Surprised, she wondered, "What is this?" Suddenly a voice rang out, terrifying her. "You underestimated me." It turned out to be Katerina. She hadn't fallen to her death, but had reappeared right in the hole. She gently placed her feet on the floor and continued, "But you almost killed me." "Interesting." As she spoke, she smirked and walked toward Coco. The snakes had all been killed by Coco, but Katerina could still create more. She asked, "Were you looking for your friend just now?" The snakes coiled around each other, forming an even bigger snake. She looked at Coco's terrified face and said, "Then let me help you never be separated." "What are you talking about, you bitch?" The giant snake opened its mouth wide and rushed toward Coco. But suddenly, something slashed across the snake's throat, accompanied by a voice. "We don't need your help." And just like that, the snake slowly split in two. Coco stared in astonishment at the snake that had just been cut in half. Katerina was also surprised, frowning and looking at the snake as well. It turned out the snake had been cut in half by Ayaka. She stood right next to Coco, holding two long swords, and looked at Katerina. "We're always together," she said. Seeing her, Coco was overjoyed, her eyes wide as she cried out, "Ayaka!" Katerina retracted her snake-like hand, surprised, and wondered to herself, "Detoxified? This poison can only be neutralized by me and Lady Anna. So why?" She stared at Ayaka's normal face. Back to a moment ago, when Soo Hyuk had proposed cooperating with Ayaka to fight Katerina. At that time, Ayaka had asked him, "Fight together? Even though you were just trying to kill me? Why should I trust you?" Soo Hyuk had immediately taken out his knife, his eyes cold as he looked at her and said, "Then there's no other way." Instantly, the knife plunged straight toward Ayaka's face. But no, it wasn't a knife to her face, but straight into his own hand. Ayaka, in disbelief, asked him why he did that. "What are you doing?" "Someone once said this," he replied. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's enough." And that was what Miro had told him. He continued, "I once gave my all, but the result was being abandoned. Your friend must be furious, thinking she's lost her best friend. I understand things like that very well. Now drink my blood." As he spoke, he brought his bleeding hand to her mouth. The image of him bringing his bloody hand to her made her think of the image of young Coco holding out her hand to her, cheerfully calling her name. "Ayaka?" Katerina frowned tightly. Soo Hyuk spoke up. "Have you ever heard the saying, 'The one with nothing left to lose is the most fearsome'?" As he spoke, he walked over and stood next to Ayaka. The two of them stood there, weapons in hand, facing Katerina. "Let's give her a taste of what death feels like," he said. Both of their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Someone was running at full speed without stopping, indicating that something was very urgent. The person ran to a room, flung the door open, and called out loudly, "Bishop Miro, there's a big problem!" Inside the room, Miro stood with her back to the door.
Hearing the voice, she glanced behind her. The other person, with a very worried face, continued, "A large number of vampires. It was said that they had attacked the hotel." Hearing this, Miro's eyes widened in surprise as she stared at the other person. Back at the hotel, Soo-hyuk was holding his knife tightly, rushing forward. The snakes that Katerina created opened their mouths and also rushed toward him. He said, "She can turn her body into a snake and command other snakes. If you're bitten by her snakes or inhale the poison gas, your body will be paralyzed and you'll be easily controlled in a rigid state. Fortunately, the poison doesn't last long. We need to close the distance with her." At the same time, he swung his arm and cut off 3 snake heads at once. He looked at the severed parts of the snakes, which trembled and then grew new heads. But they just keep growing back endlessly, he thought. The snakes immediately rushed toward Soo-hyuk. He swung his sword, slashing at them. The knife lodged in one of their mouths, piercing through its head. Seeing this, he thought, "Is she trying to take my silver knife?" And then, suddenly, nearly a dozen of them rushed at him. He was taken by surprise, his eyes wide as he stared at them. And then, something flashed by. It was Ayaka. She had quickly rushed forward to block him, using her sword to chop off the heads of the other snakes. At the same time, she yelled, "Calm down! Are you going to die just because you lost your silver knife? She uses her power by absorbing blood." As she finished, she threw a sword at him. "So it won't grow infinitely." It turned out the reason he was so surprised and froze was that his silver knife had been taken by Katerina. He quickly reached out and caught the sword she had thrown. He caught the sword and immediately got into a fighting stance. "She's trying to wear down your stamina," Ayaka said. "I'll find a way to deal with the snakes. In the meantime, you help Coco." Hearing her, he glanced over at Coco, who was lying down, and replied, "I understand." With that, he immediately went and sat beside Coco. "Listen carefully, Coco," he said. "For now, we're allies." A few drops of blood appeared on Coco's face. Her entire body trembled, her eyes wide as she stared at him. Soo-hyuk did the same thing he had done to save Ayaka. He brought his bleeding hand to her and said, "I'll detoxify you. After that, you'll support me and your friend." Hearing that, she opened her mouth and drank his blood. He watched her drink his blood and said, "This is the only way for everyone to survive." A long time later, she was completely detoxified. She opened her eyes, full of life, and stared at him. But then she sat up, let out a cry, and swung a punch at his face. He took a hit from her and fell backward. Then she threw her whole body at him, pinning him down with her weight. Horrified, he gritted his teeth and wondered, "Is she being controlled? But I already detoxified her." Coco suddenly turned to Ayaka with a joyful expression and called out loudly, "Ayaka! I caught Soo-hyuk!" Hearing that, he was completely bewildered, a question mark filling his mind. Ayaka, still relentlessly slashing at the snakes, replied loudly, "We don't need to anymore. We have to kill Katerina with him." Hearing that, Coco asked again, "Really?" Then she turned back to stare at his face, her lips pursed, saying nothing. He didn't know what to say either. And then, she turned around and used all force to rush toward Ayaka. He was so angry he clenched his fists, veins popping as he watched her go. As for Katerina, she was still calmly fighting the other two. She recalled her plan before entering the hotel. Using those two to find Soo-hyuk was a brilliant idea. But he was able to break through the poison and use them after detoxifying them. I really must have him. At this thought, she licked the corner of her lips with her tongue and smiled slyly. He gritted his teeth, slashing at the constantly regenerating snakes. "All right," he thought. "We're getting closer. Just a little more." And suddenly, 2 snakes opened their mouths and spewed poisonous smoke at them. Everything around them was shrouded in a thick green poisonous fog. He immediately warned the other 2 loudly, "Poisonous fog is coming. Everyone hold your breath and get close." The other 2, hearing his words, immediately gathered next to him. "The poison fog will dissipate quickly," Ayaka said. "This fog appeared because..." Before she could continue, he answered, "That's right. She intends to separate us." In his mind, he thought, "The target is definitely not me. Not someone as agile as Ayaka, nor someone who fights alone and relies on..." As he was thinking, he suddenly noticed something approaching. It was Katerina. She, along with 2 snakes, rushed toward Coco. Horrified, he screamed in his mind, "Coco!" Coco's face was flushed from holding her breath for too long. "How dare you lay a hand on my people?" Katerina said in a cold tone. "I'll kill you first." The snakes immediately opened their mouths and lunged at Coco. Ayaka quickly yelled and rushed to block Coco. "No!" The snakes immediately bit her. Blood vessels immediately popped in Ayaka's eyes. Coco screamed in terror, "Ayaka!" Soo-hyuk quickly rushed in, using his sword to kill the snakes. "Damn it!" he yelled. "I anticipated her reaction. If she targeted Coco, one of us would get hit. Come here, I'll give you some blood before that bitch gets here." As he spoke,
He prepared to cut his hand with his sword to get blood to save Ayaka, but she spoke up. "There's no need. Time is of the essence. Hurry."
Surprised, he turned his head to look at her. The snake's head that had bitten her chest had been severed, and it immediately fell to the ground. He stared in horror at Ayaka and cried out, "You!" As for Coco, she also stared at her, trembling in panic, and said, No, no." Then Coco screamed her name, "Ayaka!" The reason was that his silver knife, which Katerina had stolen, was now embedded in Ayaka's chest. Ayaka remembered her childhood. "When I was little," she was staring ahead with terrified eyes. Her father hesitated and said, "My dear, Daddy's sorry. You have to listen to what that man says." As her father spoke, a man holding a suitcase of money brought it to them. Her mother's mouth was drooling. She muttered, "Serves you right." She was led away by the man. She turned her head to look at them, joyfully holding the money from the suitcase. "Mom sold me," she thought. And just like that, she was taken to a place with many children around her age. Someone spoke up. "Today, I will introduce you to a new friend." The person was wearing a surgical gown and holding a test tube with a red liquid. "This friend's name is Red." And then the other children were injected with that red liquid. "Be nice to Red," he said. And when the red liquid was injected into them, their eyes widened, and blood vessels popped up all over their eyes. The more the red liquid flowed into her, the more pain Ayaka felt, even coughing up blood. The dosage tests were repeated daily, and everyone became stranger and stranger. One by one, they died. I was so scared. It would be better to be there than here. It's so cold. Just as I wished for that, someone suddenly spoke up. "Hello?" This caught her attention. She immediately lifted her head to look at the person who had just spoken. It was Coco. She walked over and introduced herself. "I'm Coco. What's your name?" she asked cheerfully, holding out her hand to shake. I met the amazing Coco, she thought. In a hellish place like this, she could smile so brightly. And I even got to smile with her. And so, day after day, she was taken to the operating table at the same time. Every day passed like hell, she mused, but we survived by relying on each other. But this happiness was short-lived. One day, the man in the surgical gown, holding a file, said, "From now on, we will isolate the test subjects according to dosage. The left group is the experimental group, the right group is the control group." And the two of them were separated. At that time, Coco cried, her eyes full of despair as she looked at her. We were separated, she thought. She couldn't bear the separation either, and cried out, "Coco!" Coco's eyes widened at Ayaka's call, and she reached out to catch a shirt that Ayaka threw to her. "Coco, remember to wear that! I'll definitely come for you, you know!" she yelled as a man dragged her away. Coco stood there, looking at her being dragged away, clutching the shirt tightly, sobbing nonstop. Then Coco hugged the shirt tightly, her face full of happiness, and smiled. A few years later, an angry voice was heard from outside a door. "Get in! You'll be staying here from today." The person pushed into the room was none other than a grown-up Ayaka. As soon as she entered, she saw someone and her pupils dilated. "Huh?" Then she cried out, "Coco!" It turned out she had seen her friend. Coco was sitting with her back to her facing the wall. Hearing her call, she didn't react. Ayaka happily ran over and grabbed Coco's shoulder. "I knew you were still alive. I thought I'd never see you again." But instead of Coco happily turning around to welcome her, she didn't. She turned around with a drooling mouth and lifeless eyes, let out a loud cry, and then asked, "But who are you?" The question, along with Coco's expression, made her unable to believe what she was seeing and hearing. Her eyes widened in astonishment. A moment later, her face softened, and she gently replied, "I'm someone who really wants to be your friend." Remembering this, she said to herself, she was the one who saved me, so I promised from then on to risk my life to protect her. In the end, we survived and escaped that hell. But suddenly, in her subconscious, someone's voice echoed, "Is this all?" Another voice replied, "Yes, sir. But one of them is physically weak, and the other is mentally unstable." The other person continued, "So how are they different from humans? They might drag us down. So let's just kill them." At that time, I thought, another hell is beginning. I had tried so hard. If I didn't meet their expectations, I could be thrown away at any time. If I didn't meet their expectations, I could be thrown away at any time. If only she and I could live together. But even after going through so much training and trying to surpass expectations, the leader still didn't accept her and mocked her. "I won't let you do that. You can't even catch one of them. This is your last chance." Those words made her feel humiliated. And then, when Soo-hyuk stabbed his own hand with a knife, she, her body already poisoned, trembled in disbelief and asked him, "What now?" He replied gently, "I know.
I also gave my all and was abandoned. You must be furious because you're about to lose a friend. Now, drink my blood, and let's get out of here alive together." As he spoke, Soo-hyuk brought his bleeding hand to Ayaka's mouth. At this moment, with a silver knife embedded in her own chest, she tried to look at Soo-hyuk and Coco in front of her. Her vision gradually blurred, and she could no longer see clearly. "For the first time, I understood it from my enemy," she thought. The part of her chest where the knife was embedded was nearly shattered.
Her body trembled non-stop. The crack gradually spread to her face. Her eyes also gradually became lifeless.
"I've dirtied my hands countless times to survive, even when I knew it was wrong. But in the end, I couldn't do anything. But this guy..." Ayaka tried to take something out and give it to him. "Kim Soo-hyuk, listen to me," she said. It's not clear what she said to him. It seemed she intentionally only let him hear and not Coco. He bent down to listen to what she said, and her words made him slightly stunned. Then, as if he had heard something too extreme, his eyes widened as he stared at her. It turned out it was because she had lifted herself up and gently placed her lips on his. Then she gently lay back down on the floor, smiled faintly, and said, "Thank you." Then Ayaka tried to raise her trembling arm. It turned out she was trying to touch Coco's face. "Don't cry," she said.
Coco's face was now covered in tears, her cheeks flushed, and she gritted her teeth, staring at her. She remembered the happy times they had together in the past.
"We,"
she said softly. An image of the two of them sleeping peacefully together, sharing a shirt as a blanket. Her smile was full of satisfaction. "We'll always be together." As soon as the words were out, her body gradually disintegrated. Coco still sat there, watching Ayaka's body slowly disappear. In disbelief, Coco called her name. "Ayaka!" And in front of her now was only a set of clothes, but she was no longer there. Coco's tears flowed more and more, her teeth clenched tightly. Then she collapsed next to the clothes as if trying to hold on to her. Coco lifted her head, opened her mouth, and let out a sorrowful roar. "Ayaka!" The name came out of Coco's mouth full of pain, remorse, despair, and longing. She let out a cry of disbelief, seemingly unable to believe what had just happened right before her eyes. "Aya!" Coco's voice trembled with every passing second. "Aya!" She cried until her eyes were red, cried until she couldn't breathe because of the departure of the most important person. Coco slammed her fist on the ground, crying loudly next to the remaining clothes of her important friend, Ayaka. Katerina looked at Coco's extreme suffering and laughed triumphantly. "Poor thing. The friend who helped you your whole life died because of you." She made a challenging gesture, but also with a hint of persuasion. "You know it's useless to resist now, right? Hurry back to Lady Anna. Unlike those others, you'll be loved." Katerina's eyes gradually turned red. "Of course, I want more." Soo-hyuk's voice suddenly rang out. "I understand." Hearing this, Katerina asked back, "Really?" Soo-hyuk mumbled, looking at Ayaka's clothes. "I understand." Soo-hyuk remembered the final scene of the two of them and said softly, "I know what to do." Katerina snorted, looking at him with a confused expression. "What are you looking at? Are you talking to yourself?" "Save," Coco said incoherently. Katerina said, bewildered. Coco's thin shoulders. "I have to save her." She clutched Ayaka's clothes, her tears still falling, but determination appeared in her voice. "Ayaka!" Coco, like a moth to a flame, rushed toward Katerina, to Soo-hyuk's bewilderment. As for her, she wasn't the least bit afraid and looked at Coco with interest. Suddenly, a golden light appeared, attracting Coco's attention. She gritted her teeth in annoyance and dodged out of the range of the holy power's attack. It wasn't just Coco. Soo-hyuk and Katerina, who were also witnessing it from outside, had to widen their eyes in surprise. Coco retreated next to Soo-hyuk with a look of unwillingness. What was that just now, he wondered. From somewhere, a group of people in black clothes ran over. Risking their lives? Soo-hyuk wondered. On the other side, another group of people in black appeared, surrounding them. Thinking they were Miro's troops, Soo-hyuk let out a small sigh of relief. Finally, they're here. He glanced behind him. There was also a group of people in black holding many weapons running toward them from above. In the light of the 10,000 Buddhas, actually it was God, a short-haired girl with a full figure flew down like a descending angel. "Miro," Soo-hyuk thought. He shielded his eyes from the blinding light of the party and yelled loudly, "Wait, Miro! This one isn't an enemy. It's me and the snake girl!" Before he could finish his sentence, a silver bullet flew past Soo-hyuk's eyes. He dodged to the side in surprise. The bullet embedded itself straight into the wall behind him. Looking at the people in black pointing their guns at him, Soo-hyuk was stunned into silence. "Why?" A different voice appeared from the golden light. "Wow, so many vampires." Seeing the unfamiliar figure, Soo-hyuk's eyes widened. The other person continued, "Let me cleanse you." Lucia slowly descended from the air to the ground. She smiled faintly, her pupils glowing with strange symbols. Lucia winked playfully, but her words were terrifyingly absolute. All of you. That immense power attacked right under Coco's feet. Soo-hyuk fell into deep thought. That last attack was holy power. He noticed the plus sign in Lucia's eye. Even that eye,